Kể từ khi mà chiến tranh Palestine với Do Thái xảy ra gần đây rồi, thời gian gần đây hơn nữa, bắt đầu Mỹ với Israel phối hợp với nhau để đánh Iran, thì mình thấy có khá là nhiều kênh ở trên mạng xã hội Việt Nam họ bắt đầu làm video về Do Thái rồi Israel để họ câu view và farm content, nhưng mà kiểu họ cày content đấy. Đây có vẻ như là một cái miếng bánh, một cái trào lưu content thời bây giờ. Nhưng mà mình cũng muốn phát triển kênh cho nên là mình xin mắn phép mà làm video về Do Thái để câu view và bú phim một cách vô liêm sỉ. Một điều để nói nữa đó chính là không phải mọi người Do Thái đều ủng hộ Israel và ủng hộ phong trào phục quốc Do Thái, và đồng thời người ta cũng phản đối chiến tranh giữa Israel và các nước Trung Đông, cụ thể gần đây là Palestine. Một số người họ phản đối bởi vì họ cho rằng là Israel và người Do Thái hiện đại bây giờ, những điều họ làm, cái lối sống của họ và cái cách tu tập Do Thái giáo của họ thực chất ra là vi phạm cái truyền thống của người Do Thái, cái văn hóa người Do Thái, và nó thực sự không phải là hành động theo kiểu Do Thái giáo đích thực kiểu như vậy, và những chuyện như vậy làm như thế là ác độc và thất đức.
How can you call yourself Jewish? Down the state of Israel. We oppose Zionism because we are Jews. Ready, bring your sunscreen. Hell's gonna be hot.
Because we're Jews, it's being done in our name. We have to stand up and yell. It's not anti-Semitism to be against Zionism. On the contrary, we are attacked. Even when I went out in New York, about car tires were slashed, the windows, the mirrors broken, and so forth. But we don't care. We're going out anyway. Wherever there is a large Jewish community, wherever there's a very religious Jewish community, even if it's not large, they will be in opposition to the existence of the Zionist state of Israel because it is antithetical to Judaism. Zionism is a movement that started around 150 years ago. That's just really recently, relatively recently. And it's a movement of people who were totally estranged from the Jewish religion. They were nationalists. They weren't practicing the religion as a whole. And they wanted just a convenient community, a land, a nation that they should feel comfortable and proud of themselves. The Jews never attempted, even though we went through hardships, the Inquisition, the Crusades, and we suffered a lot, but we never attempted to reestablish a Jewish sovereignty, a Jewish nationhood, a Jewish kingdom, because we know it's verboten, it's forbidden, it's just not acceptable according to Judaism to have our own state. Remember, the religion is 3,000 years ago, but 2,000 years ago, we were sent into exile by God. We have to be loyal citizens in every country we reside. And we're not to attempt to leave exile because it's a godly declared exile. Jews lived with a distinctly different religion than the Muslims, but it was never a problem. In fact, it's more than that. The Muslims took in the Jews by the Inquisition, where they tried to torture Jews to convert to Christianity. It was the Muslim countries that embraced the Jews and took them in, and the Jews were able to flourish. They realized in order to get a lot of massive support from the world, evangelistic Christians, Jews who don't know the Torah, don't know their laws, who don't practice the laws, so they knew they'll go to Palestine and they'll be able to tell everybody, oh, this is the God-given land to the Jewish people. They automatically started breaching and transgressing the laws of the Torah, not to kill and not to steal, not to oppress a people, because they wanted to make their national home in a land that was inhabited by the Palestinian people. Now, right at the beginning, when they said, oh, it's an empty land. And if anybody stood up against them, they said, because you hate the Jews and you're an anti-Semite. They treat us like the worst terrorists in the world. When a boy or girl turns 17, they become a criminal, even if they're not demonstrating, because we refuse to serve in the IDF. They yell at me as a Holocaust denier when my grandparents were killed in Auschwitz. My father escaped Hungary when the Nazis came in. My father was in Auschwitz. Almost the entire families were wiped out. I live and breathe Holocaust. How dare they claim that we're Holocaust deniers? But that's just part of that, the vile Zionism, that they have the power of the most expensive PR and the power of AIPAC that influences, put pressure on politicians to be silent. That is what they're afraid of. The people who stand up and reveal the truth, that Judaism is a beautiful, and we live together with Muslims, and we are thankful to Muslims, and we don't want what's happening to the Palestinians. We cry with the Palestinian suffering. That is what they're afraid of. The world will wake up.
כולם בדעות די שונות אחת מהשנייה.
כן.
אבל בסופו של דבר מה שמאחד את כולם זה ההתנגדות לרעיון של הציונות, שהוא שונה, אין הבדל בין זה לבין להיות קיבוצניק.
כן.
להיות קיבוצניק חילוני. כי שתיהם בעצם אומרים שאנחנו עוזבים את דת השם, את האמונה שהקדוש ברוך הוא ציווה את עם ישראל במעמד הר סיני לעיני כל העולם.
כן.
ואנחנו הולכים אחרי רעיון חדש. השמאלנים אומרים שזה קומוניזם. הימנים אומרים שזה, לא יודע, ניאו-ליברליזם או כל מיני דעות אחרות של נציונליזם, סוציאליזם. אנחנו נאמנים לשם, בדרך הישנה. תגיד שאנחנו מיושנים, תגיד שאנחנו פרימיטיביים, תגיד מה שאתה... זאת הדת שלנו.
כן.
בזה נהיינו יהודים. זה מה שמגדיר את היהודי בסופו של דבר. יהודי זה דת, זה כמו מוסלם, אסלאם. ומה הוא מוסלמי? בזה שהוא מאמין בנביא שלו מוחמד ובשאר הנביאים. הוא הולך לפי מה שהנביא שלו, החדית והקוראן, מצווים אותו. בלי זה הוא לא מוסלמי. הוא לא יכול להיות מוסלמי. כי זה הדת שהופכת אותו למוסלמי. לא זה שהוא נולד ערבי או נולד סודני, זה לא משנה.
כן.
כי יש סודני נוצרי ויש גם ערבי נוצרי.
כן.
אבל מה הופך אותו למוסלמי בסוף? זה שהוא שומר את הדור, הולך אחרי הנביאים שלו.
כן.
זה אותו דבר אצלנו. יש לנו נביאים, יש לנו חכמי ישראל, יש לנו מסורת של דורי דורות. אי אפשר לנטוש את זה בשביל כל הרעיון שלא יהיה. ברגע שעושים את זה, זה הופך להיות דעה חדשה. זה הופך להיות משהו שהוא לא יהודיות. וכשקוראים לזה ישראל, או לוקחים שם שהוא מקושר על התורה, שזה ציון, שזה בעצם שם של השכינה, כינוי של השכינה, הופכים את זה לאיזושהי תנועה מסוימת שזה רק זה. זה כמו שאני אגיד, אנחנו יהודים שומרי שבתיים. אנחנו יהודים מתאמנים בכדורסל, זה לא משנה. היהדות שלמה, היא תמימה. גם לא תגנוב, גם לא תרצח, כל המצוות ביחד, בשלמות.
Họ muốn phản đối vì họ muốn dừng chiến tranh, họ không muốn gây thù hận với những quốc gia Ả Rập, những quốc gia mà theo Hồi giáo ở vùng Trung Đông, và họ cho rằng là các biện pháp của Israel trong chiến tranh là thái quá.
Is another day too late? This is the first time I am using my full real name to stand in solidarity with Palestinians, and I don't deserve applause because I am too late. Because every single day that we don't speak out as Jews in support of Palestinian liberation is another day too late. I grew up in a Jewish American school system that was explicitly Zionist, I feel like we've all heard stories, but that didn't just make sure we didn't talk about Palestine, but actively taught us not to empathize with Palestinians. And the kind of fear and repression that leads Jews who would say more to be silent is why Israel can continue to do what it's doing. But I'm here to say, for anybody who is scared, that there is no level of explaining away that can make it okay that 30 plus children were buried in Gaza on Eid. There is nothing. There is no explaining that away. And no school system, and no Hezbollah newspaper, and no government can make that okay.
Palestinians are doing every single thing they can to survive. And our duty and our responsibility and our commitment is to do every single thing that we can do in solidarity with the Palestinian people.
I used to be a Zionist. As you mentioned, I'm a Holocaust survivor. Zionism was very important for me as a salvation of the Jewish people, until I found out that the state was founded based on the extirpation, the expulsion, and multiple massacres of the local population. And that's not historically controversial. So I'm taking a longer view of this. And I'm saying that the present situation cannot be understood without looking at the historical context, and nor can we move forward if the present occupation and the suppression of the Palestinians continue. So Sharon, your previous guest, talked about the fragile coexistence. There was no coexistence. There was oppression, periodic massacres, land occupation in the West Bank, the continuous expulsion of the population from their homes. I visited the occupied territories 3 times now. The first time, back during the first Intifada, Piers, I cried every day out for 2 weeks at what I saw. So this cannot go on. And I saw the news about the Elgin marbles being returned, and how you changed your mind about that. Well, how about returning the land that's been stolen from the Palestinians? I'm not talking about the state of Israel. I'm not talking about 1948. I'm talking about since 67 and what's going on right now. So there's got to be some stop to what's going on, and that's how I understand it.
No,
this is for the sake of both Israelis and Palestinians.
נתניהו
אני רוצה לספר לך את סיפורו של מוחמד אבו אל-קומסאן, בן 32 מעזה. ניסיתי חודשיים לפני המלחמה ולאחר מכן חווינו את מסע הגירוש.
חברת הכנסת גוטליב.
עברנו ממקום למקום החל מהצפון ועד שהגענו לדיר אל-בלח. בשבת ה-10 באוגוסט נולדו לי תאומים, בן ובת, אסר ואייסל, וזאת לאחר ניתוח קיסרי קשה שעברה אשתי, דוקטור ג'ומאנה ערפי. שמחה מילאה את ליבנו בבואם של ילדינו הראשונים, ההתרגשות הייתה בלתי ניתנת לתיאור. בבוקר יום שלישי ה-13 באוגוסט יצאתי בשמחה לבית החולים, הוצאתי את תעודת הלידה לתינוקות שלי. מתוך שמחה שלחתי לאשתי תמונות ותעודות הלידה בוואטסאפ, אך היא לא ענתה. באותו הזמן קיבלתי שיחה מאחד השכנים ששאל אם אני בסדר. עניתי אני בסדר, והוא אמר לי הדירה שאתה שוכר הופצצה. מהרתי וליבי פועם מפחד ודאגה לגורל משפחתי, עד שהגעתי לדלפק הקבלה של בית החולים, וחלק מהשכנים אמרו לי ברעד, הם בתוך מקפיאי המתים. לא עברו 10 דקות מאז הוצאתי תעודת הלידה, ופתאום אני מוציא להם תעודות פטירה. התמוטטתי. בעזה יש 17,038 תינוקות שהמערכת שלך הרגה, ביניהם 825 תינוקות מתחת לגיל שנה. בעזה היום 35,055 תינוקות יתומים. הדם של כולם ירדוף אותך, ואתה בעזות מצח תוהה על כך שאתה מואשם בבית הדין בהאג. בנימין נתניהו,
חברי הכנסת,
מהו החזון שלך? מה החזון שלך, תגיד לי? מזה 30 שנה אתה רוצח סדרתי של השלום.
לא, עצור. רד מהדוכן מיד. להוריד אותו עכשיו.
מה החזון שלך?
רוצח סדרתי בקפלן, לא פה.
רוצח סדרתי של השלום זה אתה.
רד מהדוכן. רוצח סדרתי, רד מפה, חצוף.
Không chắc mấy người này họ có phải họ giả vờ hay không, hay là họ chỉ móm như vậy để thu hút sự chú ý mà thôi, không biết nữa. Nhưng mà dù thật hay không đấy thì mình nghĩ là cũng có những người họ thật lòng đấy, và mình nghĩ là điều này cho thấy rằng là con người chúng ta đúng là phức tạp và ở đâu cũng có người này người nọ mà thôi, và mỗi người có lý tưởng riêng của họ, và chúng ta không thể đánh đồng tất cả mọi người được, không thể vơ đũa cả nắm là ồ mày thuộc nhóm người này thì mày sẽ mặc định mày là kẻ xấu hay người tốt kiểu như vậy. Thôi video đến đây là hết rồi, đừng quên like và sub cho mình nha, ủng hộ kênh của mình phát triển hơn. Bye.